Broad bean is a traditional legume which, among all types of vegetables, is the first to be sown in an outdoor garden bed. By sowing early, we can avoid black bean aphids, which pose the greatest challenge in broad bean cultivation. It is a beautiful plant that produces young pods, fresh green beans, and later dry beans. Due to its easy cultivation and versatile use, broad bean is regaining popularity in home gardens. This year, we sowed a variety called Frühe Weißkeimige. In this lesson, I'll show you my practice for sowing broad beans directly into the garden bed. This is a vegetable that is sown only once a year, and the best time to sow broad beans is in February or at latest in early March, directly on the garden bed. You should space the rows 60 centimeters apart and the seeds 20 centimeters apart within each row. If you have a 75 centimeters garden bed, then one row is enough. If you have a 100 centimeters wide garden bed, then 2 rows are recommended. When planting broad bean seeds, it's important to know that we plant them about 3 centimeters deep into the drills of uniform depth along the entire length of the row. Since broad bean seeds are larger and sown deeper, it's best to avoid stepping on them. In this video course, I recommend using the garden fleece to warm the soil and protect the young plants from the wind and frost. The garden fleece will also help your broad beans to grow faster, especially if you're planting them in coastal regions, where it's also common to sow broad beans in autumn and let them germinate during the winter. It's not necessary to water broad bean seeds when sowing them so early. I have found no significant difference in soaking the seeds in the water before sowing. Since broad beans are sown in cold and germinate slowly, they can moist up from the rain and snow. Soaking the seeds can be problematic if you don't know how many seeds you will use in the garden. To ensure a successful broad bean harvest, it's a good idea to sow some seeds in separate containers, such as plastic nursery pots, to grow some seedlings. These seedlings can be used later to fill any gaps if some of the seeds in the bed will not germinate. It's best to grow the seedlings outside to ensure they are exposed to the same conditions as the plants sown directly in the garden bed. When planting the seedlings, bury them with the nursery pot into the garden soil, into the compost, to ensure they have the same temperature conditions as the seed directly sown on the garden bed. Broad beans have excellent temperature resistance and good germination, so it does not make sense to grow them just from seedlings. By following these best practices for sowing broad beans directly on your garden bed, you can ensure a beautiful harvest of a nutritious legume. By the end of March, the first plants may already be visible, and in areas where seeds haven't germinated, you can transplant your backup seedlings. Be sure to water the transplanted seedlings well. This is how we achieve complete occupancy of the bed without empty spaces. During the young plant's growth stages in early spring, regularly loosen the garden fleece cover to allow unimpeded growth. The fleece should lie directly on the broad beans until mid-April, when the plants are taller. At that point, hoe and weed the entire bed and remove the garden fleece. Avoid mulching the bed yet, as we do our summer mulch in mid-May. Watering is typically not necessary even in dry spring, since broad beans have rooted themselves very well and deep. If broad beans were sown in 2 rows, install a horizontal netting support at 2 levels 40 centimeters apart by the end of April. Broad beans will grow between the openings without assistance and lean on the netting for support. They can grow 1 to 2 meters in height, depending on the variety. You can prepare holes along the bed using a metal rod. Hammer the stakes securely into the prepared holes so that they may firmly be in place. Next, install the netting. The ideal solution for this purpose is the plastic netting used as a trellis for growing cucumbers, but you should install it horizontally instead of vertically, and tightly string it between all of the stakes. If broad beans grow in a single row, stake a pole at the beginning and at the end of the row and string a plastic cord at several heights to support the plants from both sides, preventing them from falling over due to their own weight. In mid-May, when the soil has warmed, we can mulch the bed with leaves or straw, but avoid mulching legumes with fresh grass clippings. As we see in our case, we have skipped this stage completely since the compost mulch, with the help of the shade of the plants, protects the ground beautifully. Garden soil and compost mulch are usually sufficiently moist during this time of the year, so also no special watering regime is required. However, in the case of a very dry spring, that would be 1 month without rain, throughoutly water the entire garden bed extensively. Broad beans occupied the garden bed during the first half of the year. As a tall plant, it can cast shade on other plants, making it challenging to grow additional plants nearby in spring. We make a last harvest of broad beans in late June or early July, and afterwards we can plant various summer or autumn vegetables. So late carrots, turnips, sweet, or transplant summer lettuce, chicory, endive, kohlrabi, cabbages, broccoli, cauliflower, or any other brassica. The most significant challenges in broad bean cultivation are ants and black aphids, which typically emerge with the warmer days of May and tend to target less developed plants. To mitigate the risk of a severe aphid infestation, sow broad beans as early in the year as possible. Broad beans also require light, nutrient-rich soil, which can be achieved by enriching the soil with compost. Pay attention to the presence of ants in your garden, as they live symbiotically with aphids and help to spread them across plants. In the event of a serious aphid infestation, you can limit plant growth by pitching off the top of each plant. This action helps the plant's growth and, as a result, reduces the aphid attack. Every year we do get black aphids, but the damage is below 20% of the entire bed. We have spotted many ladybirds this year, which feast on the aphids and keep their population under control. Another way of reducing the attack would be a use of diatomaceous earth, which we mainly avoid because, besides being a natural pesticide, it is still a non-selective and can pose risk to ladybirds and other insects. If broad beans are not sown early in the year, they may also become more susceptible to leaf mold. Broad beans can be harvested at different stages: young pods, young beans, and dry beans. Begin harvesting young pods when they reach a length of 6 to 10 centimeters, which is typically from mid-May onwards. We love this harvest since we have never ever found it on any marketplace. The problem for growers and sellers is the short shelf life, and we as the gardeners do have this opportunity to enjoy this special harvest. We cook them in various soups or alone as a side plate. Young beans can be enjoyed in June, either raw or cooked, and are a delightful spring treat. Throughout June, the beans ripen slowly and can be harvested for immediate consumption or for storage in the freezer. To collect the pods, pinch them off with your nails about a centimeter from the stem to avoid damaging the plant. This is an important detail to keep in mind with all legumes that we harvest as pods. When it's time for a full harvest, collect all the beans, even if they are not fully ripe, and store them in the freezer. Fully matured beans, which can also be used as seeds, are harvested in July when the pods turn a bit black, indicating that the seeds are drying. After the final harvest, cut the plant just above the ground and leave it to dry for around 4 days. This makes it easier to remove from the supporting netting, allowing you to reuse the netting in the future seasons. Leave the roots in the soil, mow the entire above ground part of the plant with a lawnmower, and use the material for compost or mulching. Freshly picked young pods and beans are best enjoyed immediately, offering the freshness of seasonal vegetable early in the gardening season. For longer storage throughout the winter, it's recommended to store young or dry beans in the freezer. Mature and dry broad beans can also be stored in an airtight jar, which can be later used as seeds. To preserve the variety, sow only one variety at a time on the same bed, ensuring that the only one variety is blooming at any given time. Although broad beans are self-pollinating plants, it's best to avoid any potential crossbreeding of varieties. Like this, we also have grown not only 3 different types of harvest, but also our own seeds for the next year. From the cold day we sowed the seeds to the summer days of multiple harvests, you've learned how to cultivate broad beans. The journey of a gardener is never over. There's always another seed to sow, another plant to nurture. Join us on our next course and let's keep becoming gardeners together.